Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Ronnie Tullypan. We warmly welcome the family of Lance Corporal Anthony Albert Watson, who are joining us this evening. Family including Mr. David Watson, President of the Kyneton RSL, and Mrs. Sarah Long, granddaughter of Major General Wagstaff, who recommended the term ANZAC to General Burwood 100 years ago. Welcome. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you wish to sit, please do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 Australian men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than 100 years. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Anthony Albert Watson. Known as Tony, Anthony Watson was the youngest son of Anthony and Kathleen Watson of Kyneton, Victoria. His father worked at a farm at South Kyneton and in mining at Friars Creek. Tony attended the Edgecombe State School and went on to train as a carpenter. Like his father, he also worked as a farmer in the local area. In November 1912, his father died, and the following year his mother was injured while driving through pouring rain to vote in the May 1913 federal election. She never really recovered from the accident and died in early 1915. A few weeks after his mother's death, Tony Watson enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. He was posted to the 22nd Battalion and after a short period of training, left Australia on board the troopship Ulysses. Watson arrived on the Gallipoli Peninsula around August 1915. He proved an able soldier and was promoted to Lance Corporal in early September. By mid-September, however, he was too ill to remain on the battlefield and was evacuated with pneumonia. He was first sent to hospital in Malta and later to England, taking several months to fully recover. He finally rejoined his battalion in Egypt in March 1916. 1 week after Watson returned to the 22nd Battalion, he was transferred to France to fight on the Western Front. The first major action of the battalion came near the French village of Pozières. After playing a supporting role during the attack that captured the village on the 23rd of July 1916, the 22nd Battalion entered the front line in early August, and on the 4th of that month, were ordered to attack a number of German positions to the north. The battalion made some gains, but suffered extremely heavy casualties. More than 140 men were listed as missing after the attack, including Lance Corporal Tony Watson. An investigating officer could find no information regarding his fate, reporting that it seems that the section he was in attacked a part of the enemy's line which is very thick with enemy soldiers, and there can be little doubt that he died in action, like so many of his comrades. I am sorry to be able to give no further definitive information. A court of inquiry later formalised the finding that Watson had been killed in action. He was 30 years old. In Australia, it was reported that Watson was an ideal soldier, and there is none that knew him that will not deeply regret that he has fallen. They will feel the deepest of sympathy for his bereaved relatives who, after so many months of cruel uncertainty, are now called upon to mourn the losing of one who was in every way so worthy of their affectionate love. Tony Watson proved himself in every sphere of life, whether as a son, brother, or citizen, every inch a true man. In 1926, during the course of exhumation work around the village of Pozières, a Lance Corporal Watson's body was finally recovered from the battlefield, a decade after his death. His remains were buried in the AEF burial ground at Grass-Rain, Fleur. His watch, chain and identity disc were recovered from his body and returned to his eldest living brother, Charles. The news of the recovery of the body, it was reported, has been received by the relatives with feelings of relief. Anthony Watson's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Anthony Albert Watson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, We will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.